You want me to put that on my todger?
This one's wife. As ever, Insta nonsense. The breakdown. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. This one's wife's selection of as ever, we know, is part of her plagiarism of Diana. That she has taken a character trait associated with someone that she regularly duplicates and seeks to make it her own. But in doing so, she's unwittingly provided a great source of entertainment. I think to myself, I could probably preface most of her forthcoming videos about this one's wife as ever. As ever, it's her narcissism. As ever, she buggers it up. As ever, she doesn't get it. As ever, it's always someone else's fault. As ever, Harry got it wrong. As ever, she thinks she's the centre of the universe. As ever, she asserts control through a physical means. As ever, as ever, as ever. Because if there's one constant about this one's wife, it is her pursuit of the prime aims. She doesn't know this, but it's what governs all of her interactions and potential interactions with other people. It's quite hilarious that she selects as ever because she wants to make it sound as if it's a constant with regard to her behaviour. But in actual fact, much of what she does is entirely inconsistent. She doesn't see anything through to a conclusion. She's friends with someone, then she drops them. She's involved with her family, then she drops them. She's in a relationship, then it ends. There's no constancy there. The constancy is actually something that's subconscious to her, the pursuit of the prime aims. As I explained in the earlier video, as a consequence of as ever being leaked by some sleuthing individual on the internet, this one's wife was outmaneuvered, once again demonstrating that anybody that thinks that she's kind of Machiavellian overlady is wide of the mark. And this precipitated a threat to her control, which she sought to nullify through the provision of the Instagram video. I'm now going to break down what's going on in that video. Accordingly, if you can stomach it, here she is again.
It's recording.
Okay. Cat's out of the bag. I'm shocked we've kept this a secret for so long. In 2 weeks, my show is coming out, which I'm so excited for. And also my business, which I think there's been a lot of curiosity about. Last year, I had thought, you know what, American Riviera, that sounds like such a great name. It's my neighborhood. It's a nickname for Santa Barbara. But it limited me to things that were just manufactured and grown in this area. Then Netflix came on, not just as my partner in the show, but as my partner in my business, which was huge. So I thought about it, and I've been waiting for a moment to share a name that I had secured in 2022, and this is the moment. And it's called As Ever. As Ever essentially means as it's always been. And if you followed me since 2014 with the TIG, you know I've always loved cooking and crafting and gardening. This is what I do, and I haven't been able to share it with you in the same way for the past few years, but now I can. So as things are starting to trickle out there, I wanted you to hear it from me first. Of course, there will be fruit preserves. I think we're all clear at this point that jam is my jam. But there's so many more products that I just love that I use in my home, and now it's time to share it with you. So I can't wait for you to see it. Thanks, guys.
Well, there's plenty to unpack here. The first voice we hear is that of the Prince of Pink Pancakes. Ordinarily, having your husband say, "it's recording," is something that you would edit out. Why? It detracts from your message. And also, this is this one's wife. As if she needs to be told that it's recording. This is a woman who habitually records what's going on in her life because she is, in her own deluded mind, the star of the show. Thus, to include this is disingenuous. She includes it consciously because she wants to issue an FU to the ones that doubt her marriage. Subconsciously, this is triangulation. The narcissistic manipulation of triangulating the audience with her husband in order to prompt a reaction, thus receive fuel, to manage the facade of an idyllic marriage, and to assert control over the audience by saying, "My husband has returned from the Invictus Games and he's joining me, supporting me in my endeavour." We also then get a shot of a dog. This is more triangulation. You will recall that the Valentine's Day video that she put out, where she was mangling some untoasted bagels with cream cheese and strawberries, that there was a brief appearance by a beagle in the bottom right of the corner, which led to speculation that somehow Guy the beagle had risen from the dead. Naturally, he had not, and it was either Mia, the other beagle, or if it was Guy, it was footage that had been recorded some time ago, and this one's wife was just using existing footage to prove a point. Nevertheless, she copped some flack for this, with people ridiculing her, suggesting, "Oh, the dog's resurrected." Really? And thus, once again demonstrating this one's wife does look at social media. The inclusion of the shot of the dog at the start is a clear provocation, or as you might describe it, a clap back, as against those that ridiculed her for the inclusion of the dog in the Valentine's Day video. We're barely a few seconds in, and the manipulation's already started. Remember, the entirety of what she does, because it's created with a view to speaking to an audience, is a manipulation. It's not genuine. It's serving her own purposes vis-a-vis the prime aims. This one's wife commences by explaining the cat's out of the bag. "I'm shocked we've kept this a secret for so long. You can fuck right off out of the gate." This is naturally a nullification of the threat to control. What she really means is, "You bastards, you've sleuthed this and you've outmaneuvered me. But I'm not going to give you any credit for doing so. Instead, I'm going to turn it around and make it seem like I'm amazed that we've managed to keep this secret so long because it's such big news." In actual fact, what she's saying is, "You all think you're ever so clever for leaking this. Well, actually, you're not. You should have picked up on it earlier." Once again, the high-handed arrogance of the narcissist. It then has a cut. She continues, "In 2 weeks, my show is coming out, Triangulation with Show, which I'm excited for. Also, my business, but it's not yours really, is it? To call it a business is hilarious because it's done fuck all, and as we're about to hear, it's not really her business because Netflix are involved as well. But of course, this is the grandiosity of the narcissist speaking." She explains, "My business, which I think there's been a lot of curiosity about, not so much curiosity but downright ridicule at how useless it has been, that basically for nearly a year, American Riviera Orchard has been lying in a shallow grave doing very little." She then issues a stupid laugh, and we get another cut. She continues, "Last year, I thought, you know what? American Riviera. That sounds like such a great name. It's my neighbourhood. It's a name for Santa Barbara. But it's limited me to things that were just manufactured and grown in this area." Here we see the utilisation of the narcissist using a half-truth. Yes, it is the case that she can only utilise that with regard to products which are grown and manufactured in the American Riviera. And it would appear that she's naturally going to be getting some cheap Chinese imports to try and then give them a huge markup and flog them, which would then cause her difficulties. But also, the reason she's not able to use American Riviera is because she's not been able to secure the intellectual property rights to it because of objections from other providers. And therefore, she's only told a half-truth in that regard. The fact is, it's also the case that it's been static ARO for so long because she rushed out an announcement with regard to that name purely because she wanted to overshadow William at the awards last year. And once again, whilst it worked in the sense that it got her attention, which garnered fuel, it was then the collateral consequence that she basically rushed it out with a shitty video showing her auditioning for the Ring movie, that it had no engagement, no content. There was a jam scam, there was the dog biscuits and jam, and nothing else happened with it. Accordingly, the collateral consequence of her rushing out American Riviera was that nothing occurred, and then she's been ridiculed thereafter, and it's never been able to gain any traction. She continues, following another cut, and Netflix came on, not just as my partner in this show, but as a partner in my business. Pause for shitty effect, as if she's expecting applause. There's only Harry, and he's probably wandered off for a spliff. Nobody's clapping you, my dear. She explains, which was huge. Another cut. So I thought about it, and I've been waiting for a moment. That's a lie. No, you haven't. You've been caught with your pants down. Some internet sleuth has found this, and it's caused you to come rushing to create a video because the cat is, as you said, out of the bag. You've not been sat there thinking, when shall I tell the world about As Ever? When shall I launch this? You haven't. You were expecting to do it probably around the time of the Netflix show appearing. But now somebody's found it, you're trying to suggest that you, as the Svengali of business, have been sat there pondering at your desk with Harry snoozing, his head slumped on the floor, as you think to yourself, yes, when shall I release this? I'm waiting for the appropriate moment. No, absolute horseshit, woman. She explains, I've been waiting for a moment to share a name I secured in 2022. Well, I'm not sure that's quite accurate. It's certainly the case that she had the idea of using As Ever back in 2022 because we've seen the relevant intellectual property applications, but they seem to be live and pending. I don't know whether it's actually the case that she's secured them, particularly given the fact that there is a clothing brand in New York that goes by the same name. We'll see what happens with all of that. Anyway, she explained, I was waiting for a moment to share a name I secured in 2022, and this is the moment. Ha! You're conning nobody this time, woman. Yeah, this is the moment, an impromptu video from your back garden, whilst Harry potters around in nearby. This is the moment you've chosen? Not some stylized video, not some mass media launch across all channels, not something with advertisements demonstrating this, not something that's tied in with Netflix advertising its launch. No, your launch of As Ever is you sat in the back garden. The only reason this is your moment to tell us all of this is because you have been caught with your pants down, and you've been forced to make an impromptu video in order to try and nullify the threat to control posed by somebody leaking it. She then says, and it's called As Ever. No fireworks, no trumpets, nobody really cares. There's another cut. As ever essentially means as it's always been. No shit, Sherlock. Thank you for that condescending explanation. And if you followed me since 2014 with the TIG, no I haven't, you know I've always loved cooking and crafting and gardening. No, you've loved grifting and shagging and more grifting. To suggest that you've always loved cooking and crafting and gardening when no, it's not your home, and no, it's not your cooking, and no, it's not your recipes, and no, it's not your letters, and no, they're not your bees. It's nonsensical. She likes to present this image of being a foodie because that's what her narcissism utilizes by way of the theft of character traits from other people, particularly Corey Vitello, in order to make it seem like she's this domestic goddess, and she's not. Have we actually ever seen her do any proper cooking? We've seen her flip some burgers and attempt to have an orgasm by a barbecue. We've seen her being confounded by the complexities of making toast. We've seen her elevating things with the addition of mint, but we've never actually seen her do any proper sustained cooking. Crafting? What's that? Putting labels on wonkily on a glass jar. That's not crafting. Tying some rope around the top and sticking it in a box of lemons. Is that your crafting? If you say so. Gardening? Your gardening is ogling the gardener when he's got his shirt off because it's too hot and ordering the minions around to say, weed that bed over there, pick those strawberries over there, and when you finish with all of that, come and service me behind the greenhouse. We then get another cut. She explains, "This is what I do, and I haven't been able to share it with you in the same way for the past few years." What? Now, this is a subtle dig at the constraints that she had in the royal family, which she left 5 years ago. So what the dickens have you been doing in that time? Tell me, what has been stopping you sharing, doing all this cooking and crafting rather, and gardening in the meantime? Nothing. That's just errant bullshit. And you're utilising as an excuse to try and build up to this being some kind of major event. Woo, woman does some cookery even though you don't. Wow, woman crafts something even though you don't. Ooh, lady in a garden. The only thing that you do in that respect is show off your lady garden to men in order to try and control them. She explained after yet another cut, "So, as it's starting to trickle out there, you've been outmanoeuvred. I wanted you to hear it from me first. Well, we haven't. We heard it first from whoever found it and then splattered it all over the internet. I wanted you to hear it from me first. Of course there'll be fruit preserves. I think we're all clear at this point. Jam is my jam." Oh, this one's wife's attempting to tell a joke, but it falls flat because she has no sense of humour, and you know that underneath the surface she's seething about the fact that people regularly take the piss out of her in relation to her jam, and she'll be aware of the recent commentary which came from the Daily Mail about who's actually making the jam. It appears that nobody's making the jam, so where is the jam coming from? There's another cut. But there's so many other products that I just love that I use in my home. Another cut. She can just about get a sentence out before having to cut it. And now it's time to share it with you. And I can't wait for you to see it. Thanks, guys. I'm surprised she didn't end it by saying, "As ever, I'm this one's wife." What a load of shite. But it's great material, not only to take the piss out of, but also to demonstrate the various narcissistic manipulations that she engages in. For once, you're not so much treated to a massive word salad as we have in the past. You can follow what she's saying, although a lot of it is nonsense. Naturally, she's taken to Instagram, which is now her go-to method of the dissemination of information. And she had 9 cuts in 73 seconds. She must have been a nightmare to work with as an actress, and I don't just mean because she's a horrible person, but can you imagine that she must have fluffed her lines repeatedly, apart from the ones that were going up her nose, and, in the circumstances, would have been cut, 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 go again, start from the top. This one's wife. It demonstrates that there's somebody that's an actress who supposedly learns lines, for someone who sees herself as this polished presenter, this brilliant broadcaster, this accomplished orator. She's useless. If it's not written down for her, she just can't think on her feet. That is part of her inability to focus as a consequence of the scattered nature of her mind, and also because she's not that clever. And I'm actually going to be analysing in a forthcoming video her use of language after some sterling work by another individual, which bears greater amplification to the world to demonstrate how her use of language is affected by her narcissism, but that comes later. Here, we have 9 cuts in 73 seconds. If it's not written down in front of her, she simply can't sit and talk naturally. She can't get it right. And all it does then is create this amateurish video with cut, 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 alongside all of the bilge that she's frothing from her mouth. It's more Instagram nonsense. It's driven, of course, by the need to nullify the threat to control, and it's hugely entertaining and a great vehicle for seeing her narcissism in action once again. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.